and welcome to another edition of Did You Know Doctor Who, what you may not know about Doctor Who. This time we're going to have a look at the 12th Doctor story, Thin Ice. I hope you enjoy. Stephen Moffat joked in an interview that the intro to EastEnders was always about a giant snake, a reference towards the view of the River Thames from above, which made it look like a serpent. Spider is one of the few charred characters to be killed on screen throughout the history of the programme. For shots involving the Doctor falling in the ice in his diving gear were created with the model unit using a miniature 1/3 scale puppet inspired by a similar effect in James Cameron The Abyss. To create Capaldi's head, Stephen Mansfield was invited back to the production to sculpt the features. Mansfield had previously worked on the show during the era of Sylvester McCoy, making such creatures such as the Destroyer and the Haemovores. Kitty warning Spider about how they will be transported if they're caught is a reference to how England would transport convicts to Australia for basically whatever crime. For example, in real life, a child was sent to Australia for stealing a handkerchief. The River Thames frost fairs were a real thing, being possible during the 17th and 19th century as winter became more severe during this time, but even then it was a rare event. In fact, the last frost fair was held in 1814. Dredging of the Thames to make the new embankments and the new bridges increased the flow of the currents, therefore the river could not freeze over as it used to. And yes, in real life an elephant really did work on the ice during the ice fairs. The directions the Doctor gives Bill for the wardrobe are the same directions the 9th Doctor gave Rose and the Unquiet Dead. The Doctor mentions having been to the Frost Fair 2 times before. In A Good Man Goes to War, River Song mentions that the 11th Doctor took her and Stevie Wonder to this specific fair, the last one ever held in London for her birthday. The other time may be Big Finish Doctor Who story Frostfire, where the first Doctor took Vicky and Stephen there. The real-life Frost Fair of 1814 ended when the ice broke and 2 men lost their lives. When they first arrive in 1814, Bill is worried about slavery still being totally a thing, and the Doctor agrees. Although slavery itself wasn't officially abolished in the British Empire until 1833, it essentially ended following the Slave Trade Act in 1807. Before this episode was set, slavery was also a feature of the British Empire and was never legal within the UK, something the Doctor would be well aware of. The elephant in the very beginning is tooting the noise the TARDIS makes. Bill asks if anything she does in the past could have consequences in the future, the butterfly effect essentially. The Doctor tells her she just stepped on a butterfly, killing her friend Pete, referencing Father's Day where Rose tampered with time to save her father, coincidentally called Pete. As people flee the frozen river, Sutcliffe uses a plunger-type detonator. Electrical detonators for black powder charges had been around since 1750. The white disked clock-facey part with a Wimshurst electrostatic generator flanking it were the 2 Leyland jars that they could use for electrical charges. The Wimshurst wouldn't be invented for another 50 years. And finally, the unusual names the children have is accurate to history, as children around the 19th century had very unusual names. And that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Thin Ice is a very, very good episode. Now, Series 10 in general is a very good series, and almost every episode hits the right marks, and Thin Ice for me is one of those episodes. It's definitely one of the more underrated episodes because, of course, it being a part of Series 10, not a lot of people actually watched it at the time because the previous few seasons weren't as great as they could have been, and Stephen Moffat's, time as showrunner wasn't necessarily the best. But I think this is a very good episode nonetheless. It deals with a lot of things, and one of the things it deals with, ironically enough, is greed. There's a lot of themes throughout this series, and greed is definitely one of them. It's greed that results in the events in Oxygen. It's greed that results in a child getting killed in this particular episode. It's greed, in a way, that created the Mondasian Cybermen. And so this theme that runs throughout is quite elegant here, and in this particular episode, which I think is very fascinating, is that the monster itself isn't the monster, technically speaking. It's actually the humans who are the real villains here. Sure, the creature does kill a child, it does kill quite a few people in fact, but it's actually the humans who allowed it to happen, who allowed this creature to be under the water and cause all such havoc. It's quite funny because I used to confuse this episode title with Under the Lake, which ironically enough there is an episode called Under the Lake, but it's not there. This is Thin Ice instead. Interestingly, I believe the title Thin Ice has also been used in a Big Finish audiobook as well, so there's a bit of confusion there. I really hate it when any franchise uses the same title for things. It's one of my pet peeves. But I digress. Thin Ice is a very good episode, and I think you should definitely watch it. It's a very enjoyable episode. And yes, there is that scene where the Doctor punches the guy, I think it's Sutcliffe, in the face. That is quite a wonderful scene, in my opinion. Very funny indeed. It's a very fun episode, a very dark episode as well. But it's brilliantly done, and it's very interesting when you compare it to what happened in real life as well, the Frozen Fairs, which is a really fascinating bit of history, all things considered, and I like that Doctor Who is going through these very interesting and unique, set pieces, as opposed to just going to the obvious choices, if that makes sense. So, that's another bonus point for me right there. Hope you enjoyed this edition of Did You Know Doctor Who, and I'll see you next time.